When Einstein published his theory of special relativity over 100 years ago, he proposed one of the most revolutionary ideas in physics, that the speed of light is constant for all observers, regardless of their relative motion. This principle has been confirmed by countless experiments and forms the foundation of our modern understanding of the universe. However, what if we were to entertain a hypothetical scenario and ask what would happen if the speed of light were not constant, but instead changed depending on various factors such as distance or time? This may sound like a far-fetched idea, but it is actually something that scientists have considered as a possible solution to some of the biggest mysteries in physics. One way that the speed of light could vary is if it depended on the distance it travels. This could happen if the vacuum expectation value of the electron field, which is currently thought to be constant, were to change over time. If this were the case, it could explain the accelerating expansion of the universe without the need for dark energy. It could also potentially solve the problem of missing antimatter in the universe, as well as the matter-antimatter asymmetry. Another possibility is that the speed of light could depend on time, which could be due to the influence of quantum fluctuations in the vacuum. If this were true, it could explain why the vacuum has a positive energy density despite being in a state of lowest energy. This could also potentially resolve the conflict between general relativity and quantum mechanics, which has led to the development of theories such as string theory and loop quantum gravity. In addition to these theoretical considerations, there have also been experimental efforts to determine whether the speed of light is truly constant. One of the most precise tests was conducted in 2001 by the Canadian group led by John Webb, who measured the speed of light in a vacuum to be exactly what was predicted by Einstein's theory. However, even this experiment did not completely rule out the possibility that the speed of light could change under different conditions. Despite the lack of evidence for a variable speed of light, the idea continues to be explored by scientists as a potential solution to some of the most fundamental problems in physics. In fact, in 2019, a team of physicists proposed a new experiment that could test whether the speed of light changes over time by measuring the decay of a type of subatomic particle called a neutron. The results of this experiment are still pending, but they could shed light on the true nature of the vacuum and the fundamental laws of physics. In summary, while the notion of a variable speed of light may seem counterintuitive and contrary to our current understanding of the universe, it is a concept that has been explored by scientists as a potential solution to some of the biggest mysteries in physics. From the accelerating expansion of the universe to the conflict between general relativity and quantum mechanics, the idea of a variable speed of light has far-reaching implications that could revolutionize our understanding of the cosmos. While there is currently no evidence to support this idea, it remains an intriguing possibility that scientists will continue to explore in the years to come. Now let's talk about what happens when the speed of light changes. The first thing to understand is that the speed of light is constant. It's always the same, whether you're standing still or moving at high speed. This is one of the fundamental principles of Einstein's theory of special relativity. However, for the sake of a fun movie or a thought experiment, let's just assume that the speed of light changes for a moment. So what would happen if the speed of light suddenly became slower? First, communication and GPS systems would be affected. The fact that the speed of light is constant is what allows us to communicate with people on the other side of the world almost instantaneously. If the speed of light were to slow down, it would take longer for signals to travel, which would disrupt things like the internet and cell phone service. Additionally, GPS systems rely on signals from satellites that are constantly moving at high speeds. If the speed of light slowed down, this would affect the accuracy of GPS data, making it difficult for people to navigate. The stock market would also be affected by a change in the speed of light. Traders rely on algorithms and high-speed computers to make split-second decisions based on changes in the market. If the speed of light slowed down, it would take longer for traders to receive and respond to market data, which could result in missed opportunities and financial losses. But what about the rest of the world? Would anything else change if the speed of light suddenly became slower? Well, the answer depends on how much it slows down. If the speed of light were to slow down by just a tiny amount, we probably wouldn't notice anything. After all, the speed of light is already so fast that it's hard to imagine it going any slower. But if the speed of light were to slow down by a significant amount, it could have catastrophic consequences. For example, if the speed of light were to slow down by even 1%, it would mean that the Earth would be hit by an enormous amount of radiation from distant stars and galaxies. This would likely cause mass extinctions of plants and animals, and would make it impossible for humans to survive on the surface of the Earth. What if the speed of light were to become faster instead? If the speed of light were to increase, it would have some strange effects. According to Einstein's equations, the mass of an object is directly related to its energy. This means that if the speed of light were to increase, it would cause the mass of everything in the universe to increase proportionally. If this were to happen, the Earth would suddenly become much heavier, which would cause massive earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The oceans would also become much deeper as water would weigh less and be pulled down by the increased gravity. Planes and cars would become much harder to move as everything in the universe has more mass. In fact, it would take several times the energy output of the entire human race to lift a single pound off the ground. As you can see, a change in the speed of light, even by a tiny amount, would have far-reaching implications for the entire universe. Although the speed of light is constant and not subject to change, it's still interesting to consider what would happen if this fundamental constant were to change. Perhaps someday our understanding of the universe will change as well, and we'll learn that the speed of light is not constant after all. And since we started talking about changing fundamental constants, why don't we also discuss what would happen if the gravitational constant suddenly changed? The gravitational constant determines the strength of the gravitational force between objects. If it suddenly changed, it would have profound implications for the entire universe. For example, if the gravitational constant suddenly became stronger, it would mean that the Earth would be pulled more strongly towards the Sun, and it would either burn up in the process or get flung into outer space. The other planets would experience similar changes in their orbits, and many of them would either crash into the Sun or fly away from the solar system. Our solar system is held together by a delicate balance of gravitational forces. A change in the gravitational constant would disrupt this balance and send everything spiraling into chaos. On a larger scale, the gravitational constant determines the strength of the gravitational force between galaxies. If it suddenly changed, it would affect the way galaxies rotate and interact with each other. Galaxies would either spin faster or slower, and some might even collapse in on themselves. But what if the gravitational constant became weaker? If that happened, the Earth would be pulled less strongly towards the Sun, and it would either drift away into outer space or fall into the Sun. Again, the other planets would experience similar changes in their orbits, and the solar system would be thrown into chaos. On a galactic scale, a weaker gravitational constant would mean that galaxies would rotate more slowly, and some might even fly apart. You can see that the gravitational constant is another fundamental constant that holds our universe together. Any change, even by a tiny amount, would have profound implications for everything in existence. While it is fun to speculate about what would happen if fundamental constants like the speed of light or the gravitational constant suddenly changed, it's important to remember that these are not just abstract mathematical values. They are the very things that govern the behavior of the universe, and our existence literally depends on their constancy. So while it's unlikely that these constants will change anytime soon, it's still fun to think about what would happen if they did. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to stay tuned for more videos about theoretical physics, cosmology, and other topics at the intersection of science and culture. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.